You are listening to the Critical Mass Radio Show, Orange County's business talk show, focused on exploring topics of interest to CEOs who are leading middle market companies. With your host, Richard Franzi.
Welcome to this edition of Critical Mass Radio Show and Podcast. I am your host, Richard Franzi, and this is podcast episode number 1045. Small business are the heart of Orange County. As the vice president of Cox Business, promoted her. As the vice president of Cox Business for Orange Coast Market, Jodie Duva is responsible for leading a world-class team delivering customized communication solutions to local business communities. She's joining us today to discuss more about Cox's business services and the latest trends small businesses are using to drive success. Jodie, welcome to Critical Mass Radio Show.
Richard, thanks for having me.
Let's start by asking you to tell us a little bit about your professional path to your current position as Vice President, Cox Business, Orange Coast.
Absolutely. I started out in sales, carrying a bag like many of our employees do today, and always had leadership skills and attributes fairly early in my sales career. I actually had a manager who told me, women can't do this job. They're not technical or smart enough. So that kind of became a personal challenge for me. Instead of letting that type of attitude defeat me, I really took it as a challenge to prove him wrong. If there's one thing I've always been, it's competitive, growing up playing sports, including, high school sports. So I personally decided to not let that bring me down. So I worked hard to become the top sales rep in that organization and later to go on and take his job. And that was fun, right? I sometimes wonder what he's doing today, but most of the time I don't worry about that type of thing.
Sure.
So, I worked hard to build the best team in the region over the next several years and have just continued to climb and to focus on building strong sales organizations and finding ways that we can continue to get better.
So, Jodie, you're on Critical Mass Radio Show, and we broadcast on octalkradio.net. It's Orange County's premier business radio station, internet radio station. We're also streaming your voice live on Facebook through the radio station. So we're reaching a national, if not an international audience. So maybe for those in other parts of the country who maybe aren't as familiar with Cox as we are here in Southern California, possibly they are. I wonder if you could tell our audience, and our audience are basically business owners running companies with $5 to $100 million in annual revenue. If you can tell them a little bit about what your specific area of Cox Business is responsible for and why business owners like them choose to do business with your company, that would be very helpful.
Absolutely. So Cox Communications is a large cable operator across the United States. So I run the Cox Business division here in Southern California. So Cox Business is the commercial division of Cox Communications. We provide voice, data, and video services, and we provide those services to more than 300,000 small and regional businesses across the U.S. So hopefully lots of your listeners have experiences with us, and I'm sure they're all fabulous. At least I hope they are.
Sure.
Our organization serves everything from, the small business, the strip mall, nail salon, to restaurants, to healthcare providers, K through 12 higher education, financial institutions, local, federal, and state government. So lots of different verticals that we serve. And we pride ourselves in being consistently ranked as one of the top providers of services for our customers. We're voted on by our customers as just a great partner and a great provider. So you mentioned small business earlier today. Here at Cox Business, small business customers represent more than 80% of our current customer base. So small business is extremely important to us here at Cox.
So when your sales team goes out to talk with a small business owner, or maybe they're called in on the lucky opportunity, they get called in to talk about what Cox can do, what services are you looking to provide to them?
So, in layman's terms, we provide phone lines, we provide internet access, and we provide connectivity to businesses trying to connect, say, multiple offices together. We also provide business security solutions, so surveillance and detection in the security space. So we really are kind of a one-stop shop for all of your technology or telecommunications needs, which is really a key for small business because a lot of times they don't have a department that is in charge of, their IT services or a lot of resources or depth in that area. So it really allows us to get in there and help them to be a consultant and a partner for them and let them focus on their business, which is what they do best.
Does Cox offer for small businesses any type of cloud storage or any of those type of services in addition to the connections that you spoke about?
We do provide some cloud services, and obviously the connectivity to the cloud is really the important piece there. If you don't have that broadband or internet connection, you can't really get to the cloud. So again, we can provide pretty much all of those services that our customers need, either directly or through partners.
So this might feel like a foolish question, but I don't know the answer, so I thought I would ask. I know in the commercial residential space, bundling is a very popular marketing technique that different providers use. Is that also a feature in the business world for companies such as Cox?
Yeah, it's definitely relevant specifically at the lower end of the market with some of the smaller businesses providing a bundled service where we provide an internet connection. We may provide hosted phones, so phone service over a Cox-provided actual handset or phone device. And then, some businesses use video and some don't. You may want a cable TV in your office, but you may not. That may be a distraction. So we can absolutely bundle our services together to provide, again, robust packages depending on what the customer needs. I think one thing that we really pride ourselves on is being a local provider. So, we have a fairly large office here in Orange County, and my team is out on the street in the community meeting with customers and really customizing the solution to what the customer needs. We can provide a couple phone lines and a cable modem, or we can provide a robust Ethernet network that connects, hundreds of offices. So it really is whatever our customers need.
So in a spirit of full disclosure, I'm talking with Jodie Duva, and she's the Vice President for Cox Business Orange Coast. But on the residential side, my family and my home, we have been a Cox cable customer, I want to say since we moved into our home in Rancho Santa Margarita, which I don't know if you offered it then, you tell me if you know, 1994. I would think we've been using your platform for internet connectivity for that long. I don't remember using anybody else when we moved into our home in Rancho Santa Margarita. And I've got to tell you, from that perspective, the quality of service has only gotten better over time as far as both the performance of the connection and the performance of the people who support the connection. So kudos to you from my personal perspective as far as being a long-term customer for Cox.
Thank you, Richard. We appreciate you being a customer and your kind words, and we constantly invest in our network to make it better and faster and, to really meet the needs of our customers, especially as we become more and more reliant on technology and more devices in the home. So we appreciate your support and hope that others are having a similar experience.
That must, Cox, again, we did the open, national, large-scale company. Is it a family business or is it a publicly held company?
It is a family business.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That's a very large company to be a private, family-run business, but that's awesome. Must require a significant amount of infrastructure investment to maintain and keep the performance levels with the way that the use of broadband and other services have exploded, especially on the business front, I would say within the past 10 years.
Absolutely. So I can tell you just off the top of my head, in California alone, we've invested $10 billion over the last 5 years in our network. So it's definitely constant, and as you can imagine, again, I mentioned the number of devices in the home. If you think of people start moving towards smart homes and controlling things, or online learning and streaming of video, and there's just so much more reliance on technology. So it really is an ongoing investment in making sure that we can meet the needs of all of our consumers on the business and commercial side. Business and consumer side.
Well, I'm sure as you guys internally, when they project the demand, the slope is up and to the right, and it seems to me to be never tailing off because people continue to want more services, more video, more broadband, more performance. So $10 billion with a B is a huge investment, and you need large companies like Cox and others to be able to support that kind of an infrastructure. We're going to take our first and only short commercial break here on Critical Mass Radio Show and Podcast, ladies and gentlemen. So don't go anywhere if you're listening to us live or watching on the Facebook stream. When we come back, I'm going to ask you, Jodie, if you could share your core philosophy that you're using to lead and grow your group within Cox Business. And then I'm also going to ask you what we talked about in the open, to share the latest trends in small companies, small market business are using. So don't go anywhere, ladies and gentlemen. You're not going to want to miss the answers to those two questions and more after this word from me.
Richard Franzi is the author of 2 popular business books for CEOs. His first book, Critical Mass, The 10 Explosive Powers of CEO Peer Groups, was the first book ever written on the secret value of CEO peer groups. His second book, now with newly updated information, is Critical Mass, The Power of CEO Guiding Principles. Richard's books contain powerful information to help CEOs running middle market companies gain valuable insight to improve their decision-making skills. Richard's books are available as paperbacks or Kindle versions from Amazon.com. To find them, type Richard Franzi in the search box.
Welcome back to this edition of Critical Mass Radio Show and Podcast. I am your host, Richard Franzi. All of our shows can be heard anytime on iTunes, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Spreaker.com, several hundred former guest websites whose CEOs have appeared on our show. You know, since we started airing the show on octalkradio.net in 2009, we have reached hundreds of thousands of listeners through our live stream, podcast, and other channels. Simply type in Critical Mass Radio Show in your favorite podcasting software to start receiving our weekly shows with great guests like Jodie Duva, who is Vice President, Cox Business, Orange Coast. So before the break, Jodie, I said I was going to start with asking you to share your core philosophy that you're using to grow and lead your organization. Would you be so kind?
I would say that my core philosophy is it starts with being passionate about what you do. Always approaching life and work with extreme focus and determination. And as I mentioned earlier, just not letting anyone tell you you can't achieve something. You know, the business environment is ever changing and can be challenging. You may get knocked down, but you just have to get up and be a powerful presence and lead by example. Like you and some of your philosophies, Richard, I really aim to inspire those around me, setting goals, developing detailed plans, and really communicating and staying close to my team and making sure that we're all empowered and engaged.
You know, that's really important when you have a sales organization, too, because I think people don't appreciate always how challenging it is to be a salesperson, but also to manage salespeople. It's a delicate blend because in some perspectives you have athletes, performers who are driven to success. But on the other hand, you have a group of people who many times are dealing with some of the most regular rejection that anyone in the company can get, and they go back for more every day. And that is a challenge to keep them focused on the goal. So congratulations for liking the sales role and to being good at it and leading a team.
Thank you.
But before the break, I said we're going to also talk about what we opened with, which is the latest trends small market businesses are using. You know, can you just highlight for our audience what you're seeing as far as convenience and technology, you know, positive social environmental causes, and maybe the impact on social media that you're seeing for small market businesses?
Absolutely, Richard. So you mentioned convenience. That's definitely a key for small business. We talked about it a bit earlier. So really one-stop shop solutions, using a company or a vendor to meet all of their needs. It's just, you know, whether it's the phone lines, the internet service, the actual telephones, or surveillance and detection, small businesses really need expertise and help from companies like Cox to, you know, be able to provide a great work environment and solution to run their business over. Kind of along the same lines as technology, as you know, and as we've talked about people and businesses are relying on technology more and more every day. It's amazing to me when I see some of the stuff my kids are doing at school and comparing that to, way back when I was in school, the tools and things that businesses need to create a positive experience for both their employees and their customers. Take, for example, free Wi-Fi. So if you have a coffee shop and they want to provide free Wi-Fi to their customers, or you have an auto body shop and they want a Wi-Fi hotspot so that when their customers are sitting there waiting for their car, they can connect. Again, another way that Cox can help them meet those needs. Social or environmental responsibility. So businesses are looking for ways to reduce environmental impact. So how do we become more green? And that's a challenge. I mean, I always feel like at work, it's, how can I not kill a tree by printing too many documents to hand out around the office? So, connections, broadband connections can help enable them to do more over the web. One example that you probably see a lot out there today, especially in retail, is paperless receipts, right? You can swipe your card and choose to email yourself a receipt. So that's just one kind of positive or green impact that some of businesses are kind of looking at. And then finally, social media. So obviously provides a platform to create buzz for businesses through word of mouth. So having direct access to customers through these platforms just allows businesses, no matter what size they are, to customize their message and their engagement level with their customers. As you know, some companies have a really strong social media presence and some are just kind of learning how to do that. But I think the nice thing is it's fully scalable depending on what your needs and desires for your business are.
So in your title, your responsibility is Orange Coast. What is Orange Coast?
That is so I sit in Orange County, so just right here in Foothill Ranch. We provide services throughout Orange County. I also cover Palos Verdes and Santa Barbara, and I'm currently also covering San Diego. So Orange Coast is actually our Orange County, Palos Verdes, Santa Barbara market. So rather than calling it a nice long name like that, we call it Orange Coast.
So for those that do not live in Southern California, that's quite a stretch of geography. Some very pretty coastline to be included in that for sure. But
not too bad.
But Santa Barbara is a very different market than Orange County, than Palos Verdes, right? I mean, my sense is the way Cox has to show up in Santa Barbara is slightly different than Foothill Ranch.
Absolutely.
And so you need to take the brand that is consistent, but yet be able to personalize it to the markets so that you feel like you're part of the community. I know that Cox is very active in the communities in which they reside. So not to put you on the spot, but if you could help our audience by mentioning maybe any of the activities that come to mind that you're either personally involved in with Cox that benefits the community or that that your division is doing, I would like to give you an opportunity to share that with our audience if that's appropriate.
Absolutely. So yeah, to answer your question, we have amazing local teams. So I have teams that sit in all of those markets. So from a sales perspective, they're out in the market, they're out in the field meeting with customers and attending events, as you mentioned. So whether it's myself as well as my team members, we sit on boards, we do volunteer work, we attend and hold and sponsor lots of events in the markets. So one great event that we do here in Orange County every year is called Get Started Orange County, and maybe some of our listeners have attended. It really supports the spirit of entrepreneurism here in Orange County. This year we had over 400 attendees, and it's kind of like a Think Shark Tank type session where we have pitchers, and we're really trying to support the next generation of great Orange County companies. So we pick a winner, and they receive a cash award as well as some in-kind services from Cox. So that's an event that we put on. That's kind of a fun way to support that entrepreneurial spirit here in Orange County. From a social responsibility perspective, we invest in our community through, beach cleanups and partnerships with people like the Boys and Girls Club. And again, just really investing in the communities we serve. I personally sit on the board for Girl Scouts of Orange County as well as the Orange County Business Council. So again, just getting out there and being part of that business community, which is thriving here in Orange County, and lots of my team members sit on other boards as well. So that's just kind of a highlight of some of the things that we do here to be invested in the communities we serve.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I thought to ask you that because last week I attended here in Orange County, the Civic 50, which was the first year where they had a system with the local 10C to recognize good work that's being done by a range of companies that are here in Southern California. And I was really impressed with a lot of the work that different larger companies are doing to give back to the community. So I wanted to give you that opportunity to share that as well. If someone would like to learn more about Cox Communication and their business group, and maybe even the Orange Coast area, where would you suggest they go online, Jodie?
Well, there's lots of different ways you can find out more, but coxbusiness.com. We also have coxblue.com. You can find us on LinkedIn at Cox Business, or on Twitter at Cox Business, or at Cox California.
So what's coxblue.com? That's a new one for me.
Yeah, it's kind of our marketing social media site. You'll find lots of new fun stuff there, so you should absolutely check it out.
Okay. And I did want to ask you, the Shark Tank-like activity, what time of the year do you host that?
We typically host that here in the spring. We held it in April this year. We do those throughout the country for those listeners in other parts of the U.S. here. We held one in San Diego just last month, so we kind of move around the country. But ours in Orange Coast seems to usually fall around the April-May timeframe.
So that would be something that I would find interesting to attend, to watch the activity. So I'll reach out to you separately, Jodie, and we'll do that offline. But if you could connect me, I'd just ask for an introduction to those people. Absolutely. To make sure I get an invitation. And maybe I can have somebody on the program in the first quarter of next year to sort of raise awareness to the entrepreneurs that you're doing that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's a great event.
Well, thank you for being a friend of the program. Welcome to the Critical Mass community. It's great to have you on the show and learn more about what your role is within the firm and a little bit more about what the firm is doing. And I want to thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Richard. Thanks for everything you do.
You're welcome. I'd also like to thank our engineer for today's show, Paul Roberts. Our producers are Joan Park, Crystal Nunley, and Haley Stern. If you'd like to connect with me on Twitter, I'm CEO Peer Groups. If you'd like to check me out on LinkedIn and YouTube, Richard Franzi, Franzi. And my website, criticalmass4business.com. And until our next show, which if you're listening to the live feed here on octalkradio.net or watching us on Facebook, is going to be in 5 or so minutes at the bottom of the hour. But if you're listening to us as a podcast, just hang. It'll be the next podcast served. Until the next time we get a chance to talk, I hope all of your business decisions will move your company in a positive direction.
You have been listening to Critical Mass Radio Show Business Talk Show, focused on exploring topics of interest to CEOs who are leading middle market companies. With your host, Richard Franzi.
Support for this podcast and the following message come from Almond Board of California. Did you know the almond community generates more than 100,000 jobs in California? To grow what you know about almonds, visit almondsustainability.org.
From NPR News in Washington, I'm Jack Speer. Republican Senator Jeff Flake of Arizona has been caught in a long-running feud with President Trump, and today he announced he will not be running in 2018. NPR's Vanessa Romo reports Flake's retirement is a double-edged sword for Trump supporters.
In a withering indictment of President Trump on the Senate floor, Senator Flake condemned the coarse tone of politics and